Hello and welcome to episode 37 of the Ecuador Insider Podcast. I am Jesse Bayer of Abundant Living Ecuador, coming to you today on Thursday, September 7th from Loja, Ecuador. Took a bit of a break from the show, was traveling for a couple of weeks, now back in the swing of things here in Loja and ready to knock out a weekly show once again, try to get you informed on all things Ecuador. Super excited for tonight's show. Have two great guests, two guys who live in Ecuador, are business people, entrepreneurs. They bring a whole esoteric side of things to the equation as well. So I'm really excited to chat with them tonight. I think they'll give you a lot of great insight into their perspective on life and business here. So without further ado, let me get to them. I'm joined tonight by Joshua Dharma and Kasper Postovsky. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. As I mentioned, these two are both friends and business partners. They have some business ventures together. They have very interesting backgrounds, which we'll get into. And they live currently in the Vilcabamba area of Ecuador, about 45 minutes from Loja. So guys, thank you so much for being here. And how's everything going?
Really well, thank you.
Thanks a lot, Jesse. It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. And that was for our listeners. That was take two out there. I'm sorry for screwing up the button on take one.
Okay, no worries.
So I think I'd really like to get into some of your experiences in Vilcabamba and Ecuador, some of your business experiences. I think you guys are doing some really cool stuff sort of for the world and for humanity. But just kind of to give our listeners some background. Josh, I know you're Scandinavian. Obviously you've moved to Ecuador. Kasper, you're from Canada. I came across you, Kasper, a number of years ago via your biodome stuff. My sort of quick story on that was, 11, 12. I was doing a bunch of research and sort of concluded that some not so great people were sort of kind of in charge of things here on Earth, and was looking at my options and came across Biodome and headed up to my dad's place in southern Vermont and started, getting set up kind of, and then ultimately obviously ended up in Ecuador. But it was really cool for me to actually run into you in Vilcabamba, Ecuador, like a year or two later. So anyhow, I was introduced to you that way. I know you guys are doing all sorts of stuff now with water and so forth. So why don't you guys just maybe individually give us just a quick sort of background that people can, know who you are.
Well, I could start. I'm Joshua, and I'm from Scandinavia, and about, I think, 15, 17 years ago, I moved to Thailand, and I stayed there for 10 years, and doing a lot of esoteric spiritual work. One thing was I was doing ibogaine sessions, which is an African root bark, taking people through a journey of psychospiritual discovery. But basically, after some time in Thailand, I felt the best way I could describe it was like she was this sleeping beauty, meaning it's a very, very beautiful place, and life is very easy, it's cheap, and life is just, it's everything's just easy over there. But I felt spiritually I wasn't really moving. It was too much comfort and too little, shaking up in the inner realities. So basically, me and my girlfriend, we started looking for other places to live. And I was always fascinated with South America because of the shamanism and the mountains, spirituality. There's a lot of interesting things going on down here. And we started looking at different countries to live in and which one was cheap to live in. And we zoomed in on Ecuador, and then we actually started seeing that there's a whole raw food community. Back then I heard about Mike Adams and Matt Monarch and Vilcabamba, the Valley of Longevity, fresh water, clean air, good food, all that stuff. And we were like, hey, that sounds amazing. So we never been to South America before, but we bought a one-way ticket and sold everything, just packed our bags, bought a one-way ticket, and just basically flew from Thailand to Ecuador, which is, if you put your finger on a globe, it's kind of on the total opposite side of the planet. And we finally arrived, and we arrived on a Monday morning, and there was no one there, and we were just like, oh no, did we make a mistake? I didn't know everything was closed on Mondays.
All right.
So basically, but after a couple of weeks, we were like, okay, this is awesome. This is our home. We love it here. And so, yeah, I've been here now for, I think, about 6 years, maybe more, and bought property here in Hacienda San Joaquin, right next to Kasper. So, yeah, that's my quick little story.
Very cool. And what about you, Kasper? What's your kind of quick story as to how you got to today?
Well, I've always been. I mean, I'm originally from Poland, but more Canadian than Polish. Grew up in Canada. Always been an entrepreneur, and always had this dream of living in nature and just a very different lifestyle than the Matrix in Canada. And around the time I was going through some major life changes after a lot of ups and downs in business and my life. I had a kid, a very young kid, a 16-month-old, and I wanted to pursue that vision. And things just kind of got in alignment around 2011. And I decided to just jump ship. And somehow Ecuador popped up on the map again. I was subscribed to this dude on YouTube called Matt Monarch, the Raw Food World. And he was like, come on down, we're doing a community here, and you can raise your kids here, and we're going to live in nature and grow vegetables and do our little vegan thing. Yep. So I was like, cool, this sounds awesome. And I came down, and that was a whole adventure of its own. And it originally came down to Vilcabamba for 1 month to see if I would like it, but I never left. So it's been 6.5 years later, and I'm still here and just loving every aspect of it. The community, like Josh said, the spiritual connection to life. You just have time to actually live and do nothing if you wish. And
reflect.
Yeah, and reflect, which takes up a lot of your time, which is great.
Yeah.
Instead of just chasing the dollar every single day and being on a concrete highway and spending most of your time commuting and worrying about things that are completely inconsequential and just programmed into your mind by the media and everybody else running around in their own neurosis, chasing who knows what for what knows reason. And so it's beautiful in many ways. And I've gone through, like many people say here, many periods of the honeymoon, the original honeymoon with Ecuador, with Vilcabamba, and then the periods of like, I want to get the hell out of here. It's I need to go back to Vancouver because I need sushi. or it's just too boring here. I can't meet anybody. Or
Sure.
And every time I go through these cycles, I go through them, and I tried to leave many times, but I just end up coming back because it just can't function in the normal world anymore. There's nothing. There's no appeal to it. I mean, I'd love to visit the nature in Vancouver sometimes, but that's about it. Nothing draws me to the Western world, and so there's a deepening of just enjoying life here and everything that this place has to offer, and the greatest thing being the confrontation with oneself, the confrontation with you, because there is nothing to do. There really is quite nothing to do, and yet I find myself busier and more occupied with life than ever before, actual life and living, because I don't know why, but it just seems to be the case because there's actually space and time for it, and so yeah, I love it.
Very interesting. I mean, it's beautiful also. I think a lot of people sort of come to Vilcabamba. I mean, I'd say Ecuador in general, but Vilcabamba really specifically with some of those same sorts of desires. And a lot of people sort of don't find, a lot of people I think really find what they're looking for, and a lot of people don't find what they're looking for. It's interesting to hear from you guys who have been there a while that it sounds like expectations were somewhat in line with reality, or how would you describe that?
Well, let me put it this way. I kind of had a precursor in Thailand because it's also a pretty laid-back way of living. And I went through a kind of a culture shock in Thailand just by how things are slower and relaxed and all that stuff. So I was kind of prepared for it. But Vilcabamba was next level stuff because here it's... You don't have big cinemas and drive-through restaurants, and you don't have all the stuff that cities have. And so you are in nature here, especially Vilcabamba. You are in nature. There's birds singing. Where we're living, it's quiet. So the thing is, there's a lot of people in cities and maybe even suburban cities who are dreaming about living a life like this, but what they don't realize is that they have a lot of work to do on themselves, and so there's a huge pain body. There's a lot of so basically people have all kinds of addictions of distracting themselves of feeling what they really feel inside. And so basically what I see is a lot of people who come here with this belief system and this dream, this image inside of their heads about living in tranquil environment, and just wow, I can sit in my little hut in the middle of nowhere and just chill out and it's all good. And then they do so, and then suddenly just the whole world implodes on them, because suddenly they can feel themselves and there's no one distracting them. And then I see a lot of people kind of start blaming Vilcabamba, and it's a shitty place and stupid people. I don't want to be here because everything is wrong and blah blah. And then they just like disappear. And it's pretty obvious to see that they are just in such a deep process, and so much stuff is coming up inside of them that they can't handle that. It's too quiet here. It's too confrontational to stay here. So, and plus this Mandanga mountain we are all living around is one huge vortex of energy, and UFOs are flying in and out of the mountain, all that stuff. So this is a portal, and this portal is basically processing a specific frequency for the whole planet. So basically all the people living around here are conduits for something that is bigger than even their own personal story. And if you're not geared for it, if your consciousness is not ready to hold those frequencies and energies, and you can't step into that with awareness, if you have a problem with that, then you're not gonna like what's going on here. You're gonna be suffering quite a lot, because if people believe in their minds and the story they tell and the thoughts they have, if you do that, you can get carried away and not really enjoy this place. But if you know how to turn off the mind and take a deep breath, meditate, and just sink in, this is paradise. So it sounds great, but it's also a challenge. You gotta have to be ready for this. At least that's how I see it.
Kind of karma accelerator vortex. Everything happens much quicker when you live here. All your shit that you haven't dealt with comes up. All of a sudden, things that you thought you dealt with, like you're dealing with them again. On another level. And a lot of people, some people stay, some people just come and leave, but the people who really have the hardest time is the people who come and they project all their issues on everybody else. I've seen that many times, and it's really quite entertaining to watch. And
there's a lot of like crazy stuff happening to people. Like they have these massive breakdowns, and depressions, and the emotional this and that, and so and it's so obvious that this is karma on steroids. Like if you have something in your luggage, it's gonna come out and get aired like openly, and it's gonna go quick. So it's not always pretty, but this is the name of the game here. And so if you're ready to clean out, this is a great place to be.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you guys are doing that. It's very interesting to me, your explanations on that. I line up with you guys almost 100% on that explanation. Like I've probably not worded it as well as you just did, but I've given that same explanation to people, like clients who have asked me about it. It is a very powerful, energetic place, isn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, anybody who is sensitive to energy, they can feel it as soon as they just, when they're driving in from Malacatos. The moment you drive in the car and you kind of start driving downwards towards Vilcabamba, you're already inside the field, and it's already, it's there already. And then once you live here and it starts getting under your skin, because it takes like a couple of weeks before you connect to the collective consciousness that is here and start merging with it. Couple of weeks, and then things starts happening. So you're in the cosmic roller coaster, as I call it, after a couple of weeks here, and then you really start burning inside the microwave radiation of cosmic consciousness.
The proper term is a roaster coaster. Roasting in the flames of your own crap.
Yeah.
So
it's also good. I mean,
it's good. I mean, I'm really enjoying this. I came here for that, because for me, Thailand is actually more beautiful, more lush, more easy and cheaper and all that stuff. But it does not have this edge to it. There's definitely, you can feel the ancient past in the mountains. They're talking to you all the time. It's like you're definitely in the field, and it's a completely different experience. So I love it. I mean, most of the time, the thing is, I'm basically here. I'm learning a lot about just not being in my head and being in my heart instead, and just be present and just be with things. And if you do that, it's totally awesome. Like, I love this place. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's almost refreshing to me to sort of hear this, because I feel very similarly about Vilcabamba. When I first came to Ecuador, it was with the intention of living in Vilcabamba. I did live in Vilcabamba for a period of time. I don't remember exactly how many months, maybe 8 or 9 months. And then ultimately ended up in Loja because my daughter was in school here and my business was here and I just had to be here. But I feel very similarly about Vilcabamba, and I remember like at that beginning describing this to people, how like quickly things happen here, and just how the energy is and how intense it is, and also just how beautiful and how good you can feel. I remember having these conversations, but it was like long ago, and I kind of lost touch with that just because of my life and how busy I am and so forth. It's very refreshing to hear you guys sort of talk about this from a firsthand perspective. Of people who have been there a long time, and it reminds me of feeling that when I was there as well.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of really cool people in town. I mean, everybody who stays here long term, they are very special people. They have something that is interesting within, like all of them have something to share. So yeah, it's a very, very different place, and you're either part of the tribe or you're not.
Yeah, and I mean, as a real estate agent, I see that with clients. It's like people spend like 5 minutes in Vilcabamba and they love it or hate it within those 5 minutes. Like there's almost no in between. It's like a client like looks around the park and is either like, "Fuck this, get me out of here," or they look around the park and they're like, "Oh, I'm home." Like, you know, so, yeah.
I even saw a couple basically fleeing the town in the middle of the night. They couldn't even stay here overnight.
Yeah,
it was that intense.
Very interesting.
So it's but there's what's called power spots on the planet. There's certain places on the Earth that are very special places, and this is one of them. 100%.
I would like to add is like what I love the most about it, besides this intense vortex, but what has been the richest part of my life over the past 6.5 years has been the people and the friendships I've built here. I never had real friends in my life until here. I never had a real friend like Joshua, because it's just a container for that. If you're in that space, you can have true intimacy with people. You can really attract real intimacy, real friendships, and in the other sense too, romantically as well. And a lot of people who come here, as partners. Sure, you know this as well, Jesse. You know, if it's not meant to be, then it gets stronger. But if it's not meant to be, then people break up right away. Because it just shakes loose whatever's not coherent together, frequency-wise, between people. And most of my time, the most enjoyable times I've spent over the past 6.5 years, has been underneath the stars with a campfire and my favorite closest friends, and just having real, meaningful discussions with people, real conversations from the heart to heart about things that truly matter, not what's on TV or what social media is. And that's one thing, is there's no freaking signal here, or nobody just cares about phones and iPhones and smartphones. So you don't have people checking their Twitter every 20 minutes or their Facebook. It's just, you're just meeting heart to heart all the time and talking about what's real in the moment. And everybody who's our friends, for example, like our typical evening when we get together and we talk about what's cooking. We talk about what's really cooking inside of our souls, inside of our heart, what we're processing. And you might meet someone who's having a seemingly normal day, your friend, but they're just like, "Oh, I'm going through some crazy karmic shit that I don't know." Cool, tell me about that.
Yeah.
Well, it seems like it's a reflection of my past life and my issues with my mother, but now it's all ending and it's connected to my business. And all of a sudden, and you meet them 3 days later, they're like, "Oh, I went through it, and now it's just so much better." And you can see on their face and on the energy how it's affecting their life, and see that in yourself. And I think this is something that the Western world is very hungry for. A lot of people want this. We're just distracting ourselves from the real inner life so much.
Yeah, actually, I had an experience yesterday. Like, one of our friends came over, and I was just casually saying, "How are you?" And he was like, well, and then he started talking, and I was just like, oh, how awesome. People are just really, I mean, they really take it literally. Like when you ask, how
Yeah.
are you? They actually answer, and I'm interested. So it's like there's a whole, like if you live in a city, it's like, how are you? Oh, I'm good, good. How are
Yeah.
you? How are you? Like just moving on, right? But it's not, at least in my circle, the people I'm meeting, it's, you don't have those kind of conversations. We it's always real. We just keeping it real all the time. It's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you described there, Kasper, really is what everybody's looking for, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful that you guys have found that and been able to do that. I think that really is everybody's wish.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think one of the biggest problems in the world right now is that we all stacked up in apartment buildings in blocks very close to each other, and we have never been further apart from each other at the same time.
100%.
And so even though we are in a town that it's not so many people, but we have much more connection than most big cities are having.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, let's flip over a little bit to your guys' business stuff, because I think really it's really interesting. Obviously, it connects in with some of the stuff we're talking about, as far as trying to do good in the world and create the reality you want and so forth. So, you guys want to talk a little bit about your current businesses and where that's at and how it's going?
Sure.
Sure. Well, just to give a little background, I've always, ever since I was 18 or 17, I've been doing online business my whole life, and I've always been involved in projects that somehow were green in nature, or I never just wanted to do business for the sake of business, like selling Viagra on the internet or something because you can make a lot of money. And I passed up a lot of opportunities because I just wasn't interested in it. I always wanted to do something that was good for the people, good for the world, and so
conscious projects.
Conscious projects. And so I don't want to get into too many details of my past 14 years of experience in business. But I have a strong internet background, especially in direct response, online advertising, and built and given away and made and lost lots of money and all that. But to bring it current, so Josh and I met six years ago. And,
something like that.
Yeah. It's really cool. When we met, and kind of recognized that we knew each other from many, many lives before, and had many lives together, and there was like a deep friendship that got rekindled. That we met again for the first time.
It's like two brothers meeting again.
Yeah, and so we for the first 6 months we never did anything. We just hung out on the porch and just sat in this field of silence and just talked about spirituality and intimacy and love and
consciousness, awakening.
Yep.
And had a lot of fun. Had a lot of fun just hanging out. And there's a big age gap between us, so we got to learn from each other in many ways. I was going through a lot of shifts myself, and then after a while, we said, "Hey, why don't we do something together?" And so we launched a health business, a supplement business on the internet, and that provided a lot of funds for us to buy land. We actually bought land together. We have land next to each other. We're creating a little spiritual community.
our little tribal family reality here.
What we quickly gravitated to is we really wanted to share online. We wanted to reach this intimacy that we're talking about, not in a romantic or sexual sense. A lot of people confuse the word intimacy with that. We're talking about intimacy between human beings, this touching the real, the divine,
heart to heart,
the essence of people, and talking about this and about the true nature of who you are or what you are. And so we started something called the Silent Furnace on the internet, where we're just doing online satsangs. For those who don't know, satsang means to be in truth, to associate in truth. And we would just bring people on and talk about spirituality. And we sold courses about manifesting from the heart and meditation and various other things. And that was going really well, but we lost touch with that for a while. And it's been, we got distracted with our other business, and then some crazy stuff happened. But just over the past few months, we've finally gotten back with the real vision, which is called Ever. For those who want to check it out, it's www.ever.is. And we do a weekly or twice a week podcast about all kinds of crazy stuff, esoteric topics, building pyramids, Nubian pyramids, Russian pyramids, biohacking, water, what happens after death. Joshua is one of the few people I know who's died and come back in this life, like physically died and gone to the other side and come back, and he's done it not once but 4 times. He's a pretty interesting guy with a lot of experience in spirituality and mystical background, and yeah, in a sense, myself too. We share that in common, and so we just love to share that and talk about real things and what's really happening on this planet right now, because we believe there is a massive global awakening happening right now.
Yep.
And it's very, very evident here in Vilcabamba, because in many ways it's like an accelerated time bubble where we're ahead of the time-space continuum on this planet. A lot of these energies hitting here. The pre-wake of these energies hits here, and then it hits the rest of the population on the Earth, I think like maybe 4 or 5 years later. So we feel that, and we try to express it and talk about really cool things. Anywhere between, like biohacking water or cryptocurrencies and what's going on in that area. So that's our business, and it's really just we're both on a similar track right now. I can mostly speak for myself. Is I'm in a track of really wanting to align my passion and my fun and my art with my business. I'm beyond just trying to make money for the sake of money, even though I could. But I really just want to have fun. And so I want my business to reflect my heart and my desire for joy and fun in my life. And so we're trying to take it really easy, not too seriously. It's going pretty well so far.
Yeah, we're having fun.
And so we just hang out, we talk about what we're going to do next, and we record some podcasts during the week, and then we mail out a newsletter and talk about what course we're going to sell next and create. Like right now, and a week from now, or 10 days, we're hosting a 2-part webinar. I'm calling it an online retreat all about biohacking water. We're teaching people how to tap into, how to tweak their water. So it's, well, we could talk about water for hours. So I don't want to talk too much.
But basically water plays a much bigger role in our life than what people imagine. And it plays a crucial role in your process of awakening, because water holds memory and holds energy, and it's also a conductor of all these cosmic energies that are coming into Earth right now. So it's a crucial part in support of making sure in your life.
Okay.
2-day retreat with water.
Yeah, and you guys were selling, are you guys still selling some sort of water products to improve the water quality, or what were you doing around that?
No, I mean, both Josh and I have over 20 years of experience of working with water, separately apart. But one of my businesses was called waterliberty.com. It still exists today, but I gave it up 2 years ago. But that was that business.
Okay.
Selling water filters and all kinds of gadgets, gizmos, and additives and stuff. It's an awesome company, and I highly recommend it. But I'm not involved in it anymore.
Gotcha. Okay. Very cool. Josh, you were kind enough to give me permission to dive into this subject. I actually think it's one that our listeners are really going to be interested in. A lot of people, obviously, this is a Ecuador-based podcast. We're a real estate and relocation services company. So a lot of people listening to this show are looking at South America, looking at Ecuador, considering options, etc. One thing that is certainly on people's mind is crime. And you were the victim of a violent crime in Vilcabamba area. You ultimately stayed and went through it, and it was sort of a big deal, I think, really in the community as well. Obviously, much more so for you personally, but people, people took it very hard, even who weren't involved. It was very, very sad. People were very concerned. Obviously, you were dealing with, major physical, recuperation, etc. Do you want to just, chat a little bit about, and obviously, you don't have to get into the details, however much you want to, but just a little bit about maybe, how that was for you and what made you sort of decide to stay there and stuff like that.
Sure, and I have I've been processing a lot of the whole experience, so I don't have any emotional charge on it at all, actually. So I can talk about details and whatever you want to know, no problem. I have no hesitation holding anything back. So basically, basically, I'm not. First of all, I have never been feeling unsafe in any parts of I've traveled all over the world, and I've never felt unsafe in anywhere on the planet, except maybe in Los Angeles, actually. But I never felt unsafe in Ecuador and in Vilcabamba. And I heard about people getting robbed and stuff like that, and it comes and goes in waves here in Vilcabamba, apparently. But I never really thought about, for me, it's like I'm a big guy and I have 5 black belts in martial arts. I was a national champion in karate, so I can defend myself. I have never felt unsafe anywhere, period. Mm-hmm. So basically, I was living in a big house. At that time, me and Kasper's business were going really well, and we were making a lot of money back then. And so I was driving a nice fancy car. I was renting a big house. I was buying stuff like there's no tomorrow. And I also had a safe in my house that contained cash. And it was not a rare event that I had Ecuadorians coming in, delivering furniture or building something or repairing something or selling something. I was very naive. I was very, careless. Honestly, I was stupid. I was just totally retarded. And people could. And I go into the bedroom and I press the buttons like on the safe, and and they can hear it opens up, and I come out and give them $1,000 or $2,000 or whatever it is. So it's like it's kind of like I was just not really thinking about it, and basically one day I was alone in the house. I heard sounds in the basement, and I have some cats, so I thought it was the cats, but then I heard more sounds and it sounded more heavy, and I was like, what's that? It's like, so basically I just got up and walked down in the basement, turned on the lights by the stairs, not in the whole basement, but and I walked down, and what was in front of me was like 5 guys with guns and with masks on and everything, and I was just like, what? And my brain was like, this is not happening. What's going on? And you can do all the martial arts in the world, but you can't do much when there's several people with guns. It's not Hollywood,
Yeah,
so,
right.
Anyways, they wanted me to go and get on the floor, and they seemed very scared, by the way, themselves.
Sure.
I don't think they expected a big guy to show up. And anyway, they got me on the floor and they wanted to tie me up. They brought a rope, and then I had a voice in my head saying, if they tie you up, they're going to kill you. And so I was just like, okay, I don't care. I'm going to do whatever I can. And so I jumped up, and the moment I jumped up, this guy, he tried to hit me with a crowbar in the head. And I blocked it, and I took the crowbar out of his hand. And right next to me was another guy with a gun, and other people with guns. So I was kind of like, I knew I can't fight him. I can't, engage. So I just threw the crowbar on the floor, and then I started running for the exit door and hoping and praying they wouldn't shoot. And basically, I didn't know, but there was another guy by the door waiting out there with another gun. And he was pointing it at me, and he was seeing me coming running full speed towards him, and I think he just flipped out, and then he pulled the trigger, shot, and I felt this sharp pain just below my elbow.
It was a shotgun.
Yeah, it was a shotgun. Yeah. And so
with a door, for those who are arms inclined, what kind of round it was, we found out later it was a door buster round, extremely tiny.
Oh my god! Yeah.
Yeah. These are like shells you would put to like bust a door lock. Like,
yeah.
Okay.
Getting shot with that is the worst.
Yeah, it was pretty wild, and the gunshot was very loud, and basically I felt this sharp pain just below my elbow in my right arm, and they just ran out right away, and I started screaming in pain, and then also screaming for help, and they ran out, and I ran up the stairs, and suddenly I just saw there was just like blood everywhere. It was crazy. And luckily, I had quite a few friends around in this area at that time. And to make a long story short, let me put it this way, just for the listeners. The most traumatic part was not to get shot. The most traumatic part was 5 months of dealing with doctors and hospitals.
Yeah.
Because basically after this, it took first of all, it took 8 hours before I was in a hospital that actually wanted to take me in. And then they didn't want to give me morphine or painkillers because it cost money, and I didn't know. I didn't speak enough Spanish, and nobody cared to tell me. And I had to pay for it, and I had the money, but they didn't tell me it cost money, and so they just refused and ignored me and all that stuff. So it was really crazy night. And
was that in Loja, Josh, or was that somewhere else?
That was so. Basically, I went first to Vilcabamba Hospital, and they didn't know what to do with me, and then I spent like an hour, 1.5 hours, wasting time there, and then in the end, I had to jump inside my own car and. My friends driving the car took me to Loja.
Wow.
And then they wanted to bring me to the private hospital, San Agustin, I think.
Yeah.
And then, but they didn't want to take me in because it was in the middle of the night and there was no doctors there or something like that.
Yeah.
And so wasted another hour like this, and then we went over to the government hospital. And finally, I got inside and I got some painkillers and all that stuff. And when I woke up the next day, basically I never slept, but the next day, the doctors came in and said they have to operate and take pictures, like X-ray and all. So basically, I got on the operation table. I woke up. I didn't even know what they're going to do with me. And they put this long metal rod inside my elbow joint, and that goes into the ulna, if anybody knows about anatomy, the ulnar nerve or ulnar bone. Mm-hmm. So basically where your little finger is, there's this bone that connects on the lower part of your arm. And they put a metal rod all the way inside the bone marrow, all the way like 2/3 up inside that bone to kind of stabilize the whole thing. And it looked crazy. So anyway, my intuition told me, go to Cuenca. There's better hospitals there, and they know what they're doing. And also the government hospitals seemed pretty dirty and not that high tech. And so I went to Cuenca, I think the day after that. And in Cuenca, they were like, okay, don't worry, we can fix this and all that stuff. And I was like, okay, great. But then after 1 week, they just told me, hey, you got a bacterial infection. Actually, you got 3 different super bacteria infection inside your bone marrow. And they are antibiotic resistant. We can't kill it. And I was like, what? And they were like, yeah, we're going to have to amputate your arm. And I was just like, and the bacteria infection, I got that from the government hospital, not from the gunshot.
Yeah.
So basically, I would have been fine if they hadn't infected my arm. So basically, I spent first 2.5 months, and all the money that the business had went into trying to save my arm and pay the hospital bills and tons of antibiotics. And they were doing, I basically was in full anesthesia every third day with a full cleaning, and they're trying to remove this bacteria and all that stuff. And basically after 2.5 months, they said that it's a failure. We're going to have to amputate your arm and all that stuff. And I was just like, okay, enough is enough. I've researched health and alternative health for the past 25 years now.
Yeah.
And suddenly it was just like a light switch went on in my head, and I realized, hey, wait a minute, they just don't know what they're doing.
Right.
They have no clue. These people are not going to help me. My arm is having a problem, and I'm the only one who can fix it. Mm-hmm. So suddenly I just was like, okay, bacterial infection in bone marrow. And I started Googling, researching, and all that stuff. And I started talking to friends that are very knowledgeable. Mm-hmm. And I got a really good advice from one of them. And she said, in Colombia, there is this very powerful ozone treatment where you do ozone IV, mm-hmm. But 10 times stronger than normal because it's done in a specific way. and a hyperbaric chamber twice per day, which is you sit inside this metal tube with high pressure oxygen, very high level oxygen, and under high pressure, so lots of oxygen goes into your system. And I was drinking copious amounts of MMS, which is also oxidative therapies. So basically 3 oxidative therapies in one go. And the doctors in Colombia, one doctor who is a specialist in oxidative therapies, he said I was the only person he has ever seen who could handle this much at the same time. I was doing this ozone every day. I was doing hyperbaric chamber twice per day, and I was doing 15 drops of activated MMS about every second hour. This would have knocked out an elephant, and I felt amazing. I was just like, okay, this is really great. And within 1.5 months, basically the infection was gone.
Wow.
And then I was like, okay, this is great. And then me and my girlfriend were like, okay, now what? Because I got shot in Vilcabamba, and I didn't feel safe, and what's going on, but I need to heal and all that stuff. And every time I was thinking about I need a place to rest and heal, I was always thinking about Vilcabamba.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, okay, I'm not sure, but let's try. And so we went back to Vilcabamba, and it was really traumatic and weird for the first couple of weeks. But the community was extremely supportive. I mean, I got so many emails. People were bringing in supplements. Everybody was doing everything they could to help. Even people I never met. Like it was, and that was another reason why I came back, because the community here is highly evolved. I mean, people are really, really in service. It's beautiful. It's awesome. I love this place. And so I came back, and we rented a little house surrounded by many other houses, so it's kind of like not private.
Yeah.
And so and in the beginning I was feeling very unsafe, and I woke up in the middle of the night if I had heard a voice or sounds or anything. I woke up, but slowly it started diminishing more and more and more as time went by. And at one point the infection, and I was warned about that after 3 months you have to revisit and do another round of killing the infection. Because there might be 1 or 2 or 3 bacteria surviving, and then they can reproduce and all that stuff. So basically, here in Vilcabamba, I found an Ecuadorian nurse who had this very high quality German vitamin C IV, and also I did some research. There's a hospital in Mexico mixing vitamin C with something called DMSO, which is actually taking a very huge molecule like vitamin C and transport it all the way through your bones into the bone marrow. So I did this high dose vitamin C twice per day, and basically after 2 weeks, it was like I was like, okay, I'm clear. This is totally, it's done. So that was great. And then basically, as time went by in that house that I was renting, I was like, I like this place. I love this place. And, I had this accident, and I was not very smart. And but, people, I don't have any money left now. I'm kind of skinned now. I spent it all on trying to save my arm. So it's like I don't think anybody is gonna come and rob me again, because I don't even have a motorbike. I don't have a car. I don't have a motorbike. I don't have anything. I'm just skinned. So it's like, okay, I won't be able to send out the wrong signals anyway. So and they didn't get what they came for. So I was just like, I think I'm fine. And now I managed to build a little, very small house at 60 square meters on my land, and with 1 bedroom and 1 kitchen. And now I live here on the land, and I'm enjoying it very much. And so I've been here now, I know now it's been, I think, 1 year and a couple of months since the accident, and I sleep tight at night. I don't wake up if there's any sounds, and I don't care. I'm pretty chill now. So
Wow.
yeah, so it's. I mean, I think because of all the work I've done in my life, like before all this. I mean, I had my 4 near-death experiences, so dying is not something I'm afraid of. So I may be handling situations like this more easy than a regular person.
Sure.
So
I mean, I'd say so. Yes.
yeah, so for me, I'm fine. There was another guy who had an accident and got robbed, and I think he got shot in the leg a year ago or 2 years ago, and he left and never came back. So, which is completely understandable.
Sure. Did the guys, are the guys ever get caught, or do they make any progress on that, or no?
So basically, they had masks on. So I couldn't give any description of who it was. So the police had nothing to go for. But there's a lot of rumors in town. There's people talking, and they think they know who it is and all that stuff. And honestly, after I heard like number 5 or 6 version of who it was and why and all that stuff, I kind of just checked out.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I have no idea. They could have been Colombians, they could have been locals, they could have been from anywhere.
Sure.
And I have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you handled that about as well as you could have, both during the incident and then getting yourself healed. What a testament to natural alternative medicine and the body's ability to heal.
Oh yeah, I mean, doctors, the only thing they can do for infections, especially infections inside bones. I mean, if you have an infection in tissue, it's one thing, but if it's inside a bone, it's a whole different story. Because for them, the only answer they have is antibiotics, and antibiotics doesn't work anymore. It's like the bacteria. Actually, people die from infections in hospitals on a very frequent basis. It's very, very dangerous. So if you don't know what to do for infections, then hopefully I just gave some clues here in this podcast. And absolutely. I mean, don't listen to the doctors. They don't know what they're doing.
Agreed. Okay. I'm tempted to ask a question that I think might lead to very long answers. Not just because it's an interesting subject. We're almost 50 minutes in here. I'm thinking we'll probably leave it here. Do you guys have stuff that you want to plug? Do you want a minute to give people websites or ways to get in touch with you? Anything that you want to chat about before we wrap up?
No, I'm pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, what we are doing is you can find everything on ever.is.
ever.is. It's an Icelandic domain.
Yeah.
Okay.
So basically, that's we are doing podcasts as well.
Okay. Very cool. Well, Josh, Kasper, I appreciate you both coming on. I appreciate your honesty. I think you gave people really interesting and honest, on-the-ground insight into Vilcabamba. You said a lot of things that I also believe but could not have said as clearly as you did. So I think brought a lot of value to our listeners, and I really appreciate, Josh, as well, you sharing your story.
Well, you're welcome. And I just want to say, if you consider coming here and living here, if you carry yourself consciously and don't wave around anything very valuable and stuff like that, I consider this place a pretty safe place. It's still South America and all that stuff. So I mean, if you live in Scandinavia, where I'm coming from, it's a different ball game. But I appreciate Vilcabamba very much, and I think this is one of the safest places you can find.
Okay, very good. Well, thanks again for tuning in to the show. Once again, I'm Jesse Bayer of Abundant Living Ecuador. You can find us on our website at A as in Apple, B as in Boy, Ecuador.com. And we'll see you next week.